Please welcome Arjen Heida, Director of BRMG of Bold.com, David Sequeira, Managing Director EMEA APAC of Skai, Remy Boudard, Senior Director of Marketplace Development in Spain of Xandr, and Jessica Koch, Director New Business Retail Media Douglas, who is joining us. Come on, guys, who is joining us remotely through the power of technology. There is a French side. Something. Jessica, are you here? Maybe in a few seconds. So, as Daniel mentioned, retail media is seeing rapid growth across Europe markets and impacting the entire digital advertising ecosystem, obviously. There are a few questions. Two of them are how can retailers tap can they profit of this opportunity? And second one is how will this drastic shift affect digital marketing strategies of the future? Before starting, I can see now Jessica is with us. Hi, Jessica. We can see you, but you cannot hear us, maybe? If so, de IAB Euro para todos. Can you hear? No. Well, Jessica will join us in a few minutes. I'm sure we can maybe start by a first round in order for us to get to know each of you a little bit better and to understand where is retail media in your top list of priorities. So, Jessica, if you do hear us, you can start because you did not get the chance to be here with us in Madrid. Or not? Well, I'm taking the second chance. Arjen.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Arjen Heida. I'm from Holland. I work at Bold.com. Bold.com is a Dutch and Belgian e-commerce pure player. We're much like Amazon, but a lot smaller than Amazon, but it gives you an idea. And I run the Bold.com Retail Media Group, and that's the advertising business within Bold.com. So as far as priorities go, retail media is a big priority for me. It's my job, so it's yeah.
It's your only priority.
Yeah, happy to be here. So nice meeting you. Thanks for the invite.
Happy you can make it. So David, you are the managing director of Skai, previously known as Kenshu.
Yeah, and I think it's probably important because most people don't know we're called Skai. So we changed name from Kenshu about a year ago. Most people will probably know Kenshu from our search heritage back from 2006, where we were started as a marketing platform to provide technology that made it easier for buyers in activation teams to purchase ads on Google in a more seamless, automated, measured way. That moved into Facebook, and then most recently into Amazon, and then what we now call retail media, as we buy across, the likes of Criteo, some of those other logos you saw up there, Citrus Ads, Walmart, Instacart, to effectively make it easy for a brand, or easier for a brand, to buy across all these different retail media channels as, the likes of Bold.com and other retailers really become publishers in their own right, and start looking at different ways they can monetize their site.
Okay, thank you. Jessica is now gone, so Remy. Sorry, I feel a bit alone. Remy, looks like you are the local guy, as you work for Xandr here in Madrid. Can you tell us a bit more about you or Xandr?
So yes, so it's true, I'm the local guy, but you will notice a strong French accent, so I've been living in Madrid for a while for now. So for the one who don't know Xandr, so Xandr formerly known at Nexus and likely to be renamed or acquired by Microsoft. So what we do at Xandr basically, so we work closely with brands, agencies and publishers to empower their media buying. So basically what we call a DSP, a SSP, and a marketplace. So yes, our day-to-day is try to empower our partners and clients. And talking more in depth about retail media, so yes, to tell the truth, it's not big priority, but I think that it will be in the near future a real priority because it's something quite new for the advertising technology world. But yes, we have a lot of examples and a lot of things coming in the pipe. So yes, it's becoming something
one
important
of the many
for us.
priorities of the moment. Hello, Jessica.
Hi.
Hey. So, Jessica, as you are far away, can you please tell us where are you and where is retail media in your list of top priorities at this moment?
Yeah, so first of all, very nice to meet you all. I would have loved to be in Madrid, of course, in real life, so sorry for that. But at least the technology gives us the opportunity to be together that way. So, well, on my list, it's number one priority, clearly, because I'm heading the retail media unit at Douglas for all the countries. So basically, my team and I, we do everything from business development, rolling out in the different countries. So far we are in 7 different countries. And everything which is, let's say, in the machine room of retail media, so building tech partnerships, rolling out our portfolio, inventing new advertising solutions that might bring value to the partners, and yeah, the ad operations management, which is kind of big behind it. Putting it into the context for Douglas, because it's a different business, I would say it's one of the 3 big priorities that Douglas pursues as a platform. So we launched retail media in parallel to the marketplace in 2019. And of course, this is one of the strategic priorities of the group to really transform the company, not only from a retail business, but also into a media business.
Okay, thank you very much, Jessica. So my first question would be, what is it about retail media that drives everybody crazy? You mentioned Microsoft is currently buying your company, and they made it loud and clear. They want you because they want to accelerate on retail media. So what is your point of view?
Yes, and by the way, formerly, so just to make it clear, so the board of Xandr by Microsoft is still not there, but should come. Microsoft, by the way, also invested in another company called Promote IQ, specialized in sponsored products. So yes, I think that there is a real bet on retail media. More largely, I mean, obviously, it's just about seeing the figures presented by Daniel. So there is a big opportunity. If I talk about the markets that I know, so within Southern Europe, can be France or Spain. Actually, it's like being the first mover after Amazon. First, it came with some specific players. It can be the case of Skai, for instance, focusing their business, being like a tech company specialized in retail media. But yes, we are seeing some players, for instance, in France or Spain, trying to provide this kind of service to brands and retailers. And first and foremost, for 2 reasons. Because it's kind of a new revenue stream for retailers, but also for the appetite of data, obviously.
Yeah. Someone wants to enhance this answer with another point. Yes, David?
Yeah. Well, the question, like, why is it going crazy, and why is it driving everyone crazy? I do think the pandemic itself drove some of that. You know, more consumers coming online, and looking at the growth you've seen in Amazon. I think retailers themselves have, wanted to eat some of that pie. They want some of that revenue. You saw the Amazon figures that were presented earlier, that actually a lot of their profit comes from ads as opposed to, from selling products. So I'm sure Bold.com will be able to give similar views. So I think the pandemic has driven it. Consumers are online, retailers want that revenue, and brands are looking at it as a new opportunity to enhance the shopper experience. We've seen just through the fact that Amazon have such a prominent sponsored brand and sponsored product search tool. Actually, everyone's used to working that way. Consumers are used to buying that way, and actually, I think it's a really good opportunity for retailers because they can do the same. It doesn't involve a lot of new technology. The technology is generally there. It just needs probably a new mindset from the retailer themselves to understand that opportunity and tap into it.
Arjen, in France during the pandemic, because you mentioned the pandemic, we used to call retail media a safe haven. It was like some refuge. Was it the same in the Netherlands? Do you think that explain why did it become so hot?
Yeah, so I think I totally concur. So the pandemic really boosted something that was already there, I guess. But going back to your original question of what is the appeal, I think theoretically, like from an idealistic point of view, you can make advertising better, right? Less shady, more data-driven, more effective, maybe also more relevant for consumers. And I think that can work, but I think also realistically speaking, money is the appeal. And say for Bol.com, I think we want both. But if you look at what is really driving decisions, it's very often it's still the money. So we want to be able to grow, and it's also something that I've heard here in a couple of topics, right? We want to grow, and the struggle sometimes is really about, okay, but how do we make it better? And I think we tend to sort of like balance those two, which is a struggle, I guess, in a way. But the appeal is really on both sides. And me personally, I would go for the idealistic appeal, but I get pulled into the money appeal anyway every now and then.
Jessica, about that, do you think the same? Do you think like you had to try during this time, and then everybody realized it is so efficient? And maybe the next question would be, how can you grow again? What is the main challenges in front of you to scale up retail media?
Yeah, so maybe adding on the first question, so Douglas Marketing Solutions was founded just 6 months before the pandemic started. So basically, that gave us a very good wind for the business, of course. So I agree that this definitely accelerated because the brands panicked, yeah? I mean, they didn't have the bricks and mortar business anymore, and they were really desperately searching for opportunities how they could still accelerate the one channel which they still had. I think the second point is, I mean, it's not a new point because we've been discussing it in the industry for a couple of years, but still the cookie calypse, I think in the head of the advertisers is getting bigger and more present. So obviously, this is, I think, the second reason why advertisers really search for new opportunities where they can find and target the right audience. So I think those are the two main points. And Arjen, I agree with you. Accountable advertising, I think, is the buzzword, and especially in a retail context, where usually you would buy like placements via traditional co-op money, which is not necessarily very transparent on what you get out of it. So introducing retail media units within retailers is kind of a tricky thing because you're building up like an internal competition, an agency context. And this is also answering to the second part of your question, one of the biggest challenges, because I heard the word mindshift before, and I think it is like transforming a company, a classic retail business into a media business really requires a totally different view of things. Starting with one little example. So if you talk to purchasing or to classic marketing and they have a meeting, they would say, well, we're going to meet the supplier. They are coming to see us at the headquarters. Whereas I would say, I'm seeing a partner. So I think that the retail media business consider the wording partner much more justified than just saying it's a supplier. And we would also go see the client. I mean, it's a little thing, but when you start really visiting the headquarters of the beauty industry, it's an inverse relationship all of a sudden, which also strengthens the partnerships that we usually have with the advertising business. And then next to that, let's say, transformation and that mindset shift, of course, I see challenges. So the first challenge is UX. So we are like in a constant trade-off between personalization, the best UX. On the other hand, we want to introduce retail media spaces on site in order to have more space to sell. So it must be a good trade-off. And in all the, let's say, ad tech capabilities that we need to build behind it, where we, as a retailer, traditionally don't have the expertise for. So the war for talent is really real, I would say, to find the right people who are attracted by a still small media business within a retail context.
And how does this differ from your own perspective, David? How do you see the appetite of retailers? Are they conscious of conscious of the market they're diving it? What is your point of view?
Yeah, well, I do think retailers are obviously very keen to get into this space, but it comes with a lot of challenges. Each retailer is positioning itself as a publisher. That's actually just creating a load of more walled gardens. I can't imagine there's much likelihood that Bold.com are going to be sharing much data with Amazon or sharing much data with other retailers. They're going to, keep that to themselves. And therefore, we've got another layer of fragmentation. We have it with Google, we have it with Facebook, we have it with Amazon, and now we've got 1,000 different retailers that are going to be doing exactly the same thing. So I do think there's appetite, as Arjen mentioned, he wants to make money. But at the same time, and you have the asset of your own first-party data, which is going to be really powerful and really useful, except you're going to keep it to yourselves. And then you've got brands on the other side who want to buy across all these major retailers, plus Amazon, plus Google, plus Facebook, plus TikTok and everything else, and they're having to continue doing it in walled gardens. It's just more and more of them. So I think it's going to be a really fragmented market for a while. We're not going to be able to pull the data together and let alone measure, what the perspective of it is. So it's a big challenge, I think.
Can it last as such a fragmented market? I mean, yeah?
Yes, actually, just to make a comparison, and again, getting back to Daniel's slides, I have seen this word of network. So if I make the parallel with, let's say, with the display advertising and the network, right now, retail media, it's so specific to each retailer, to each market, and so on. But it's true that on the other hand, you need scale in order to activate. The basic way, let's say, if you talk about on-site advertising, obviously it's something that is on reach. But then if you go to beyond, if you want to open this and to make it, let's say, accessible by any buyer, obviously you need the size, you need the connection with the data partners and so on, and it makes it a bit more tricky. And just the last thing, for us, for instance, so as a tech partner, it's a difficulty because usually, let's say that our clients or the publishers need to adapt to the tech. In this way, it's a bit different. We need to adapt to the retailers because it can be so different between each of them.
I can see Arjen is laughing now.
Yeah, because I think it must be very frustrating if you're a tech vendor and you want to do business with retailers, because we tend to be very protective of what we think is our goal. So our data, our conversion metrics, and this is something that you need. Yeah. And you also need to adapt to the very specific tech that retailer have in terms of product feeds or whatever. So it's not a one-stop shop, and us being very protective. And also there's still a lot of room to grow. So for example, sponsored products, which is the most logical way to start retail media, we're not really at the point of saturation yet. So these are also topics that we're sort of like pushing. So there's a huge wave of retail media. Everybody wants a part of it, but everybody's coming at it from different angles, and our incentives are not really aligned yet. And we don't really know what we're up against. So we were just, having a quick side chat. Nobody knows where this is going to be in a couple of years because it's so dynamic. And for us, and maybe also for Jessica, being responsible for the advertising business within a retailer, you're really sort of like living in two worlds, because the advertising world demands something totally different from you than what we're used to in retailing. And also for us to push an agenda which is more in line with maybe at Xandr's and the Skais of the world, that would really mean big changes in the decision making on our board levels, and we are only coming up to speed in terms of expertise. I mean, I know nothing about advertising really compared to like many of you in the room, I guess, but our board knows even less, right? So it's a huge challenge to sort of like move the needle in that sense.
Okay. Any other challenge we are meeting in the very next decade for retail media?
I think it was a great point that to get scale, it needs to be there needs to be a level of consistency. But the way I see it, speaking to many different brands and obviously trying to buy across many different retailers, is there's a huge amount of different ad formats. There's no consistency there. There's different metrics in place, different attribution windows, different bidding wars going on. That some are first price auctions, second price auctions, etc. So there needs to be a consistency for it to kind of level out and grow. It will continue to grow, but maybe not as much as it potentially could if the silos were broken down.
Okay. Do you have any question for our speakers before we move on to the next topic? No? I continue myself? No? Yes? Can we have a microphone, please?
Hello, Ben from Ocado. So I very much agree with your point around there's likely to be fragmentation between retailer data, but putting that aside, who do you think that the onus is on for putting pressure on the walled gardens to eventually allow cross attribution? Do you think that that's on the retailer side or the advertiser?
I think it's a bit of everyone, a bit of a cop-out answer, but I do think brands and agencies in particular can push this. If you think about, just how most agencies are still set up in silos. They still buy search over here, social over here, Amazon over here, maybe a bit of retail media over here. They're still siloed. If the agencies themselves, who ultimately have the most buying power, come together and start buying outside of those silos, think a bit more holistically about how they're buying media, then I believe that could help push it, because ultimately they have far more superior media mix modeling and other measurement techniques that would hopefully bring most of that together.
Thank you for this question. You are talking about measure. Maybe my question would be, is retail media only effective or just relevant when you have short-term sales goals, or can it be used also to build brand consideration? What, Jessica? I can see you nod. Can you answer this question?
Yes. So totally believe into the, let's say, the full funnel power of retail media. I come from, let's say, a classic marketing background, working at L'Oreal for a very long time. And when I look at all the insights that we have on the platform like Douglas, then it's pure gold actually. And I really profoundly believe that digging out those insights and really crunching the right data for the brands and then bringing it to action brings a lot of value to the brands. Let me give you a little example. Armani, European general manager, calls and says they have a second big female fragrance that want to establish in the top 5. How can you make that work? And we would crunch all the data and look at the audiences, and they come with, let's say, a specific framework or specific idea of how the target group look like, but more from a classic marketing perspective. And then if you dig into the data and analyze it with the strategy teams, you sometimes find out interesting things, like, for example, the target group is 10 years older than the brand food. And only this little piece of information, bringing it back into the, let's say, classic ATL media mix, brings a lot of value, because you would target in TV and print another audience. So this insights-driven approach, I think, holds a lot of opportunities for retail media to really activate, start from the analysis, build up a real strategy based on the insights that we have about the consumer, and then build up a full strategy. So we see a lot of clients starting with sponsored product ads, because it's easy, because we have ROAS around about 7 to 9, so it's kind of the bread and butter, low-hanging fruit business. But then most of them get the appetite and see, okay, we can really use that as a holistic 360 brand activation tool. So I think this is the future for retail media, where it should evolve into it.
Someone else?
At the moment, and sorry for the shortcut, but for instance, if we are talking about sponsored product in general, I see it more as performance advertising. But it's true that if we go further, there are so many extensions of what we can do, for instance, with audiences. So if we don't think only, for instance, about on-site advertising, but off-site advertising, by activating those data out of the own property of the retailer or the e-commerce site. Let's imagine, for instance, that we can advertise, for instance, on digital TV, connected TV with this kind of data, very, very granular data. So yes, it can be another kind of advertising, let's say more upper funnel than lower funnel.
Yeah, do you agree about the upper funnel way of using it? One of the promise of retail media is that you're going to know better your audience. So first of all, is that for real? And then do you consider it?
Yes, so maybe also to this question, I think we can. So I think theoretically we are very well positioned to in all layers of the funnel that we can add something. I don't think we always do. And there's always also in the terms of the uniformization, or however you call it, standardization of measurements, everybody's trying to prove that they bring value, and I'm not really sure if we can really validate if that's true. And it also goes for us. So what we can say is that sponsored product helps you, and we have very compelling evidence that this is the case. So I think that works, but if you really move up the funnel, and it's really about new customers, or it's about share of voice, or it's about really building your brand, I think we lack the right measurement, we lack standardization, and we also lack, I think, the expertise, like jointly, both from the retail side as well as the agency as well as the brands. We don't always know what we're talking about. And because we don't know, we let other people convince us with data that seems very compelling, but maybe it's not always very compelling. Yeah. So we're really sort of like starting to understand this, I guess. And also back to your question, can we do it? Yes. Are we doing it? Not so sure yet. But I think we need to do better, I think.
Why not then?
Because we want to be successful, right? So we look for the evidence that tells us that we are successful. So we are sort of like with a predisposed position, and this is what we sort of like collect evidence against. And then we have best practices, and you have them too, and the brands have them too, and you show them to your manager, and you have to have something to show for. But are we really solving a problem? So are we helping advertisers, becoming more effective? Are we really helping customers to get a better experience? These are the questions, the kinds of questions that are really hard to, I think, back up with hard evidence, which we all agree on. And because we're still in sort of like the Wild West, I guess, in a way, this is the game. So that's what we play, and we play it a little bit differently. And we need to sort of like up our game, I guess.
We see.
Yeah, please.
We see. I guess when you think about the metrics, it's easy to measure, ROAS, for example. So it's such a bottom of the funnel measurement that we're measuring performance on ROAS in general. We see some of our most sophisticated brands, they are optimizing to share of voice, for example. So they're actually it's more of a big brand metric, and it still drives performance, but it's driving it through more loyalty and market share. So we are seeing that start to happen, but again, it's in small pockets with probably mainly the brands we work with that have taken e-commerce in-house. So they are just purely e-commerce focused. They're completely separating that from what they might do on other channels, but they are thinking about measuring towards those types of metrics, optimizing to profit, optimizing to share of voice, even like in considering things like out of stock within the data they use, etc. It's mainly happening within Amazon though. That's the key. It's not really happening on other retail just yet. And the other thing I think is, and again, an Amazon specific potentially, but I think it will obviously, everything will follow Amazon in many ways, is they're starting to look now at how Amazon DSP drives performance in Amazon sponsored brand products, sponsored display, etc. So we are starting to see those changes. We are starting to see the two pieces come together, but it is still fragmented. It's still, mainly Amazon that's much more mature in this market that's doing that.
Obviously.
Yeah.
While we are listening to your point of view, maybe can we get another microphone, as I would really like to have a question from Daniel as you introduce this panel. Maybe if you can share the question you have for our speakers with you, that would be great. Do you agree with that? Okay. Can I have a microphone for Daniel? Remy?
Yes, so just to make a quick summary and come back to what Arjen was saying, actually what we are doing right now in retail media is so simple. I mean, I met one of the biggest retailers locally. I won't mention the name, but just for them, and even if it's the first piece of doing retail media, doing on-site advertising with sponsored products, etc., was such a big news that they can do that. at the end, it came from this necessity. We have been mentioning the pandemic, low margin, and how we can offset that. But at the end, it was, I mean, pretty obvious, no, to do so.
We want names.
Out of the record.
Daniel, you do have a micro? No? Can I have a micro? No, he's coming.
I was just curious about retailers not being advertising companies from the start, but they have another business of selling stuff and they're now doing advertising as well. How do you, both to you, Arjen and Jessica, how do you communicate to internal stakeholders that what retail media is and that you should invest in it? What language do you need to find? What arguments do you need to do to prove the value of this and to unlock the resources that you know you require?
Yeah, so maybe from our perspective, so we started about 6 years ago with advertising, and because we are much like Amazon, we also tend to copy their playbook a little bit, and we had a lot of difficulty to get the retailing company Bol.com on board for advertising in the first place, because at a retailer, people look at advertising and they think it's a little bit dirty. So it's like it's a dirty business model in a way, and we struggled with this for a while. And the most, I think, forceful method of getting their attention, especially at board levels, is by showing numbers. And this is also sort of like setting ourselves up for failure, because the most compelling reason for the board to move into advertising was benchmark figures from Amazon saying that they would make like $1 million, $1 trillion, whatever, out of advertising. So what we got ourselves into is very ambitious growth rates, which are really like money-based, I guess, in a way. And then you have to make the investments, but then you come to the hard discussions, because then you have to negotiate with your colleagues from UX, whose sole purpose is to drive conversion and to have a clean shop and to make it, very, I think, suitable for product sales. But we want to sort of like invade that space, and advertising is not at a level yet where we can safely say that we're adding something to the experience. Is mostly taking something away from that experience. So we have to balance making money from ad revenues versus user experience. And so the way we communicate was first through money, and then we're trying to work out our differences and to come from, okay, what is the promise, and also how does it add the core business of Bol.com? So what we try to say is, okay, listen, if we can generate sufficient revenues with a high margin, then this is something that we can reinvest in customer propositions or in prices or whatever. And this is a story that we're still trying to break after 6 years, and it's really a hard one to get picked up by the rest of the company, because there's a lot of resistance. And so I said, I think, before in the prep call, I feel more connected with people here very often than people within my own company, and it makes sense, and it's a good thing too, I think.
What about your organization, Jessica? Are you well connected with them?
Yes, I am, but I feel like, I really feel you, Arjen, and we've been in it for 6 years, so we just started 2.5 years ago, and we had exactly the same problems. So, as I said, the discussions with UX and with the guys who really own the personalization stream is like, every time we need to find to get more ad units. So my hope is that somehow the technology is just getting better, like the tech companies with whom we work. We work, for example, with Criteo, that the algorithm is getting better, that the use of the first-party data in the auction is just getting so smart at some point that retail media is not a threat anymore for everyone who wants personalized user experience, but that it's more like a recommendation engine, which is equal to organic recommendation, and that we would really have this sweet spot of bringing all the stakeholders together. So, as I said before, it's really a transformation, and it takes time. It takes a lot of effort and a lot of education also. So, for example, when someone starts in purchasing, I'm on the top of the list when it comes to the onboardings, in order to really explain what we do and explain that it's definitely super interesting on top business opportunities. So I think it's in those two streams, collaborate, and really interact, and from the start create, let's say, a sense of collaboration that we strive for not the same goals maybe, but we can definitely help. And then on the other hand, improving technology so that at some point in time, maybe when we have a CDP in place and when the CDP story, is really, manifesting and getting into a vision where we are definitely having personalized customer journeys, then I think we are good to go, and then we won't have that discussion anymore. But it's definitely still a long way to go, I would say.
Okay, maybe just to conclude, what does the future hold for retail media for you? What do you see? How do you see it evolving in case, for example, of the crisis accelerates or so, David?
Yeah, from my perspective, to kind of some of my answer earlier, I do think that we will see an increase in what we coin at Skai connected commerce. I do think that there is a move now, and I think it will take a few years, but I think we're on the road to it, where buyers and planners and everyone else will start buying in a more sophisticated way to try and enhance the shopper experience. So we will try and buy across search, social, across retail media and Amazon, all in one piece, and try and measure that together. So I do see that being something that will happen soon. The second thing I think will happen is we'll see within the brands themselves a shift from, the retail media budgets being sort of held in trade marketing teams, and it will start coming into commerce teams. We're starting to see that right now. There's still that kind of I guess to your point on the retailer side, it's happening, and the brand side as well. There's still the kind of butting of heads with who owns the budget. But I see that changing now, and I feel like there's a move towards commerce, and actually that's just going to accelerate this, and it's going to help with everything we talked about today around data, around measurement, around, I guess, pushing the retailers to be a bit more, I guess, open with their sort of future.
Okay, Remy?
From a tech perspective, I think that we will see new M&As for sure within this market, so to get less fragmentation or more pure players only focusing on retail media. We haven't been mentioning, as far as I remember, the identity topic, which is also a big topic, but I think that for the activation of the retailers' data, it will hopefully be something that we will manage to scale or to fix. So I think that off-site advertising will be, let's say, a huge opportunity for retailers and for brand with a solution like curated marketplace, so allowing any retailer, by the way, joining retailer in the same private garden or wallet garden in order to monetize their assets. And as David was saying, I think that retail media at the end will be seen as a new channel within the media plans, and hopefully it won't be only for Amazon, but we will have these new players competing directly in the agencies for this kind of media.
Hopefully. Arjen, what do you see for the future?
Yeah, so what will happen, I think, is that we're going to ride the wave, right? So the growth rates are pretty steep, and this is probably going to carry on for a while. But what I hope will happen, and this is something that I'm not really sure of, is that we can actually open up a little. So that requires more trust, it requires more standardization, that requires some, I think, some lobbying within our own organizations as well. I'm not really sure if that's going to happen, but that's something that will be worthwhile to work for, I guess.
Okay. We are already running out of time. Jessica, you can have the very last minute if you want to just give us a last word.
Yeah, the market, especially in Germany, will explode. So we have more than 10 retail players who announced already that we start with the retail media business. So that's one thing. And then I do hope that the industry is getting, let's say, more creative when it comes to retail media and about the definition of retail media, to really think into a more extended retail media portfolio, which goes beyond just sponsor product ads into more content creation, digital out-of-home connection with different data partners that we could build up in order to enable the advertisers to use retail media as a not only lower funnel performance tool, but also a 360 tool.
Full funnel. Thank you very much, Jessica, and thank you to you three. Thank you also for your question to the audience. We can maybe give them a big applause. Thank you very much.